alcohol is one of those things that makes crossing boundaries very easy, very
Yeah.
easy. All of a sudden, all the friends you had are MIA because you're no longer this like fun and exciting person. 29 years of having alcohol in my life. Like it was like my security blanket. There was so much that I lost in, the 29 plus years of drinking. I feel like now I'm taking my power back, taking control back, taking back my identity.
When you get over you're sober, people think you've got it all figured out, but sometimes that's when the real inner battle begins, when you've healed enough to see clearly, but the idea of forever feels really overwhelming. Today, Jess is back. She's 13 months alcohol free, but she's questioning what it means to stay sober long term. She's being honest about the messy middle, where healing meets fear. And I think this conversation is going to hit home for anyone who's ever wondered, what if I can't do this forever? Welcome back, Jess.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be back. I was a little nervous, but yeah, I felt like this is definitely something that many can relate to. I mean, your intro said it perfectly. It's messy, right? Like it's messy and it's scary, but I'm really excited to be back and share my messy story.
Yeah. So we recorded right around 9 or 10 months. And so when you hit 1 year, what did you expect to feel and what do you actually feel now?
So I want to take it back really quick to the time that we recorded. I want to say at the time I kind of felt a little overly confident. I want to say where I was,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I was excited. I was excited to feel, sobriety and just to feel as clear headed as I felt. I was excited for the future. I felt really good. And I kind of felt like I had it. I wouldn't say I've had it figured out, but I felt like I knew what I wanted and I knew that this was forever. I mean, anyone that I would talk to, like, are you ever going to drink again? I'm like, no, no, like, I'm not. That's so over with. And it was interesting about, I want to say, like, little after we recorded, about a month after, I started to get just this, like, anxiety for some reason. And the closer I got to the year, I just felt, for some reason, I felt like the year was like this little bubble, like this little protection because originally I just set out, I'm only going to do a year. Like I wasn't planning to not ever drink again, at least in the beginning. But then as time went on, I realized how good I felt. So as I was getting closer to the year, I kind of started feeling like I was going to all of a sudden lose this like bubble of protection. And I kept having like these like visions of, it's going to sound so dumb, but alcohol was just going to show up at my door like the day after the year and was just going to be like, all right, like we're ready, let's do this. And it just started really setting in, like the anxiety and the fear and just feeling like I'm going to feel pressure to drink again, and
Mm.
I couldn't really pinpoint why I was feeling that. I think a lot of it is because when I would hang out with friends, they would always like, "Oh, well, your year's almost over. You're
Mm.
it's you're going to be back to Jessica, who you've always been." And they would tell me straight up like, we'll hang out again after the year. And so I think I just started to really kind of like internalize that and started to feel the pressure or also even just not wanting to explain myself why I didn't want to drink again, like, and that really led to a lot of anxiety and just like, I don't know what's going to happen. Once the year passed, the first maybe couple of weeks, I felt really empowered. Like, I realized, like, okay, this is a choice. Like, now it's out of this 1 year challenge. Now I actually get to make a choice. Do I want to drink or do I not want to drink? What do I want? And more I started to realize like I don't want to. I don't want to. But something that I guess I just wasn't prepared for was just the out of nowhere thoughts that come up. And like the fear of missing out, the fear of like what's going to happen with, the friendships that were waiting for us to just drink again, because both my husband and I were in this journey together. And I started to, anytime I would think about that, it's the anxiety would kick in. And I started to feel it more and more, But I will say that after the 1 year passed, there was something that happened. I think there's something that happens in that 1 year mark. I don't know if maybe you experienced this or not, but where it does feel like empowering. And there's something about that day 365 that is just like, oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
made it through all the holidays. I made it through all the birthdays. I made it through all of it. And I didn't give in. So there is something empowering about that. And that's something that I feel like I'm glad that I was able to embrace that, because I think that is what gets me through those little moments where I feel like, I don't know, maybe I will drink again, like when I start entertaining it. But I realized that I got through a whole year of not giving in. So, what is 2 years gonna look like? What is, I want to see what that looks like. But I would be lying if I didn't say that there isn't moments where I entertain it a little bit, and I think about the good times, because to say that I never had a good time with alcohol, like, I would be lying. There was good moments, but there was also very many consequences, and I have to kind of go back and go through those pros and cons. Like, what did you really gain from having something like alcohol in your life? So,
Yeah. I think getting through year one is absolutely incredible. We hit all those firsts, right? And then you realize that you can do all these things without alcohol. And then for me, year two was about the healing process. And that, I mean, I'm still in the healing process, but you just keep learning more and more and more about what we numbed and escaped, using alcohol.
I'm obviously, it'll be 14 months November 1st. So I'm obviously in the beginning of my second year, but I think you're 100% correct, because something that happened when all my friends started to come around, that 1 year, and they were like, "Hey, like, what's up? Like, you passed your 1 year." I mean, everybody was congratulating us, and everybody was excited for us and happy for us, but they were also like, I guess in their heads, like, we've always been drinkers. We've always been, partiers, and there wasn't a time that we didn't like accept a drink if someone offered it. So people kind of looked at it like, this isn't gonna stick, like, it just, I don't know. And maybe it was because we just didn't maybe really express how much we didn't feel like alcohol served us anymore. I don't know, whatever the reason was, but I, I started to resent my friendships, and I started to like feel like, well, if we drink again, like, it's because people are pressuring us. If we drink again, like, I just started to really blame other people, and started to, make it about my relationships or the people that I was around. And granted, there is some truth to that. However, these were relationships that I built while I drank. These were
Yeah.
friendships that I built while I was drinking. This is the Jessica that liked those kinds of friendships, and for some reason found something in common with them. So the only person to blame really is myself. And I started to feel like that accountability, like, hey, it's not them. It's not them telling you that, hey, it's okay to just have one. Hey, I mean, yes, they are the reminder, but at the end of the day, these are friendships and relationships I built because I was making excuses, because back then I was creating patterns and I searched
Mm-hmm.
for those kinds of friendships. So
Yeah.
what do I do about that now? Like, how do I move forward from that now? Do I continue these friendships? How do I build an environment around me that supports what I want to do moving forward, you know? And I think that's where I'm at right now. I'm kind of navigating that. Like, what do I want my future to look like? If I truly want sobriety to be something that I continue and I want to make part of my story and my journey, like, so then what do you need to do to lay out that path? Because the past keeps wanting to like creep in, right? Like the past like wants to keep like knocking at your door. I mean, to even go as far as like my imagination giving alcohol legs that it could literally come into my door and knock. Like how crazy that is, right? But that's how much of an identity we give to alcohol,
Oh, for
that
sure.
we can bring life to it, and it becomes a thing, right? So, but I think going back to what you said about the healing, I think that's exactly where I'm at. And I think that's why maybe it's getting as scary as it is, because there's the healing process. What I felt like I've learned is that it comes with a lot of accountability. Like it comes with a lot of like self reflection, and you're just like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I did all of that. You know, there's a lot of things that I look back on when I drank that I was just like, wow, I really justified that. Or even with like friendships and relationships, I ignored red flags because, you know, they were my drinking buddies.
There were no
So,
boundaries.
yeah, very poor boundaries. One thing I also learned was like, I'm a major people pleaser. And I see that in me still, because I go out with friends and they talk about like drinking and I'm like, yeah, maybe, yeah. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, you don't want to do that. Like,
Mm.
why are you even saying that? So, yeah, it's still something I'm very much like dealing with. And if we don't deal with that, the possibilities or probabilities of you going back to what you used to use to cope or whatever are high, you know, like they're still
Yeah.
very real.
Yeah.
So
I want to comment on the friend thing because I know a lot of people struggle with the whole friend aspect. And I feel the same. You just mentioned, if you went back to drinking, all your friends would come back around, right? And I feel that. I feel all those friends that were not around the last 2 years, or all the people that, were around us, they would come back because here I would be pouring drinks again, buying drinks, being the tab again. And but what I realized is friendships are going to change. You shift your friendships, right? They're not going to be the same. Maybe you have to take a break from a friend for a while and then reconnect after you've done some healing and they've grasped that you're going to stay sober, right? But along the way, I've met two really amazing people that are sober, that don't drink. One has never drank in her life. And I met one of them almost a year into being sober. And then I met the next one almost 2 years into being sober, almost the exact same month, right before or pretty much April, May. And my year is in July. A lot of people know that, but you start holding on to those friendships. You start meeting new people. And I tell people, be patient with your friends, be patient with friendships and relationships. And obviously not the ones that are going to attack you and hurt you, right? But, friendships do come. They do change. And, I love these friends that I met. I can go do anything with them and have so much fun. And alcohol is not even a question.
thank you for saying that, because I'll be honest with you, I think that's part of one of the reasons why I still entertain the idea of drinking, is because of the loneliness. You know, the part where you're just like all of a sudden all the friends you had are MIA because you're no longer this like fun and exciting person, right? According to them. But yet I still haven't built new friendships around who I am now.
Right.
And it gets very, very lonely. And that's, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure people talk about how lonely sobriety is, but I don't know if it's just maybe I'm not around enough sober people. But so, everyone I meet, it's they drink, or even if they don't drink a lot, like they're occasional drinkers. But I have yet to build friendships or relationships that are sober, or that, live a healthier lifestyle. So it is very lonely, and it does get like frustrating, because it's like, oh my god, is this just going to be it? Like, is this what it's going to be like that for the rest of my life? Like, and you start to kind of panic, you start to freak out, and it's just, because we're built for relationships, like
Right.
human beings are built for relationships. I mean, I'm really lucky that my husband is doing this with me, but you also need outside, friendships as well, connections, and we've yet to build that. So, I was just talking to my husband about that. Like, everyone we know, everyone, I mean, I want to say like 99% of people that we know are friends, that they were all people that we met through drinking.
Yeah.
And I think the only one that doesn't drink is our personal trainer. And he was the only one that would always tell us to not drink. And, but he's our trainer, like, we're not going to go hang out with him. But, it's just, it, again, like anyone else, it just, we haven't found that. And it's very difficult to, try to navigate through that without feeling lonely,
Mm-hmm.
and but I'm glad you said that, because, and I think part of it too is that maybe we haven't really gone out and searched for that. Maybe because we're just, without knowing, maybe we're just really focused on working on ourselves and our relationship as well, because we found out so much about our relationship, this first year of not drinking. And it was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I don't think we got time for friendships right now. Like, we got a lot to work on.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're getting to that point where, like, we need friends. Our kids tell us, like, you guys don't have any friends. Like, no, we don't. Because they know, people would come over, we would have parties, and we would hang out, and and those people they're not there anymore. And I mean, kids notice that, they see the difference. But I
My
also,
kids my kids noticed it too. They're like, nobody comes over anymore because I'm not drunk enough
right,
anymore, or I'm not drunk anymore, so I can't tolerate all the chaos.
right,
I used to
exactly.
drink to handle all of the
Oh
chaos.
my gosh. And that is definitely one thing. I don't know if I talked about that last time, but that is definitely one thing that I realized, within this first year of sobriety, was how much I tolerated, or the things that I entertained just because I was drinking. And
Mm-hmm.
most of my friendships that, I've hung out with friends a few times, while they were drinking and I wasn't drinking. And all I can think of was like, I can't wait to go home. Like, I need to get out of here. Like, I can't do this. And, part of me would feel bad because they were like, oh my gosh, let's do this. And I'm like, no, it's all fun and games for you guys, because you guys are just, drunk out of your mind. I'm not. I am completely sober, and I know that this is a waste of time. And I feel bad saying that. I wouldn't say that to them, obviously, but I realized that a lot of things I did were just because alcohol was involved. Like, it's not that I wanted to do any of them. And I think that's something that I also, need to kind of make peace with, that maybe these things that I used to find fun, or these friendships that I used to find so entertaining, they really were just because I made alcohol the center of them. Now you remove the alcohol and you realize, like, oh, I actually don't have anything in common with these people. And, it's nothing against them. It's just, I really don't have anything in common. And the conversation gets dull very quickly because I'm not drinking. So, but it's very lonely.
Yeah, I think our mindset also shifts, so it's really hard to be around people that don't want to grow. I mean, because we're growing, right? We have evolved because we let go of alcohol, and I feel there's a shift. We
Mm-hmm.
want more for our lives, and those that, and not for everyone, I understand this, but for a lot of people that are still just so focused on alcohol in their life, they don't have another mindset. They don't have any growth like within them that they want out of life. They just want to get up, go to work, come home, drink, repeat. I mean, that's what 75 Hard actually showed me is you also have to find friends that have the same mindset as you, if you have friends that, I just said this to somebody the other day, we're entrepreneurs, right? We're business owners. And it's hard to relate to people that aren't in the same like driven world, right? Because what do you talk about? And then you take the alcohol out of it, and then it's really, really awkward conversations. Like, how do you talk to these people? And we've met some people, and the girls don't drink, but the husbands do. But then the girls do drink, and then it's like, then I start feeling left out, or not left out. I just kind of feel like really out of place.
Yeah.
Because now everyone's drinking besides me and Jonathan. And here I am, well, I thought you didn't drink. And then they're drinking. And one of them starts drinking because the other two are drinking. And it just it's a really funky place to be in. It's a really weird place.
Do you notice that people sometimes tend to kind of like shapeshift around you, because they feel like...
But that is the word, because these people say they don't drink when it's just one-on-one, but then when other people are around, they all start drinking. I'm like, I mean, whatever, you don't have to lie to me. You don't have to do that. I don't care. Justify your drinking if it makes you feel better. I don't care if you go home and drink a bottle of wine. That's up to you, not me. I mean, you can do cake stands in front of me, and I'm not going to like sit here and lecture you. Like, I made a choice for myself, and I'm sticking to my choice, but I don't need to shapeshift. I mean, I used to be that person.
Yeah, I notice that a lot with people, and even, with people like friendships that we still have, but they'll try to, like, when they come around and, they try to like justify right away, like, well, I really cut down on drinking, or I don't drink that much anymore. And I'm like, okay, like, I just said hello. I just said hi. Like, you don't have to, I don't know. It's like, it's very weird how that happens. But I think it's because really when anyone, makes a positive change in their life, or especially with like quitting alcohol, or, losing weight, or, all of a sudden becoming more active or physically fit, it's like it does something to them, right? Like, it just makes them like check within, and like makes them, check within themselves, like, well, what am I doing? And, should I do this? Should I stop drinking? So it's like right away they throw the whole, well, I don't drink as much anymore, or I'm really trying to slow down, or, I only do this once in a while. Like, okay, that's good for you if that's
Or I
true.
really need to work out. I really should start working out, or I should, not eat as much junk food. It goes both ways. When you start changing your life, then people start, well, I do work out, but I mean, I haven't worked out for 6 months. I mean, it's just...
Yeah. And I think that just kind of speaks to the reason why they don't come around as much, right? Because it just, for some reason, we're a reminder to them of, like, I hate to say it without sounding like, I don't know, arrogant, but we're a reminder of what they're doing wrong. And you don't do that on purpose. Like, I don't ever show up somewhere and it's just like, hey, just so you know, I've been a year sober and I lost, 50 pounds, and I do this at the gym. Like, that's not how I show up. Like, my husband and I try our hardest to show up and just let people do what they do. I mean, we go to family gatherings that they're drinking. We go out to dinner, with people that drink, like, and it's never a thing where like, well, you guys can't drink, like, you can't drink around us. Like, that's not, it's up to you. Whatever you want to do, like you said, it's your life. It's whatever you want to do with it. That's your prerogative, like, but for some reason they just right away feel like, oh no, we need to be like this when we're around them, and I don't know. I mean, again, I just feel like that is probably one of the reasons why people don't come around. But I think
we make them uncomfortable, or they think that we're uncomfortable around them.
Yeah.
And it's I'm glad that you brought this up, because it's not a conversation, or it's not a topic that, is usually talked about, but it's definitely, again, that messy piece of sobriety. Are they awkward that we're not drinking, or do they think that we're awkward because we're not drinking? If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that's I think that's 100%. I mean, that's such a good question because it's like, yeah. And I would say if I was uncomfortable or felt awkward, then I just wouldn't go.
Right.
Like,
Same.
I just wouldn't go, you know? But for people that, especially if they've known us as drinkers for, as long as they've known us,
Years,
like,
decades.
yeah, they're gonna show up. I think what I feel like I see, they show up in hopes that, hey, maybe they'll drink, you know? Hey, maybe
Hmm.
they'll just like this will finally be the day that they decide to like, you know what, screw it. Let's just have one. I mean, I have friends that, I just went out to lunch with a friend the other day and she was just like, come on, you can just like have one more. Like just one more. Like let's go. Cause we used to always take a yearly trip together as a couple. And, it was always drinking. And she was like, come on, let's just do it one more time. And I'm like, what do you say? Like, I was just like, well, we can still go. I mean, we can still have fun, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm going to drink. It's just not, it would take a lot for me to give into something like that. It really would. And I think they find it hard to believe that. They find it very
Hmm.
difficult to believe that we actually wouldn't drink again. I don't blame them.
Unless you start a sober podcast and
Right?
and then
Yeah.
people, but
Well,
then that comes back to the entrepreneur piece of some people don't understand. I mean, you have a podcast, so some people
mhm,
just don't understand what it takes to build, you know, a social media
mhm,
presence and put the work that goes in behind the scenes, and they just think that, oh, it's just a YouTube channel. And that's where that entrepreneurial like mindset, it's so
mhm.
different. If you do not treat your podcast as a job, you're going to get fired.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly. Or
it's a
it's just a
legit
hobby
thing.
that really isn't
Yeah.
gonna pay you back what it could.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And I think too, like, I did want to say something what you said about, being around people that are kind of like stuck in the cycle or just stagnant, I guess you can say, where you realize, especially I think anytime you make a major shift in your life, whether you've taken your health back, or taken your life back from addiction or anything that was distracting you realize that there's so much more to do than what you were doing. Like it's like you
Hmm.
start to have these dreams again and you start to have like aspirations and you realize that the people that you were hanging out with, the only common ground you had was alcohol. Everything else was like there was literally nothing there. And again, I hate to sound like I'm just being arrogant or whatever, but it's just the truth. Like because I can say that because I was one of those people myself where I
Hmm.
was letting my health just go down the drain. I didn't really have dreams of doing anything. My husband and I had been wanting to start a podcast forever and we just never did it, or we would start it and then we would stop. And it wasn't until we stopped drinking and made room for these things that we wanted
Yeah.
that it became, possible. And when you're drinking, that's all you can think of. Your mind is just constantly thinking of when can I drink again? When can I go out again? When can we do this? When can we do that? Everything revolved around that. And it's so true. The friendships and relationships you build were just based on the limited beliefs you had. And once you start thinking outside the box, you realize like, oh yeah, I don't fit their narrative anymore. I
Hmm.
just I don't. And it's hard to say that because these are people you care about, these are people
Yeah.
you love, and you want to see them grow, and you want to share your excitement about sobriety, but they take it as if you're judging them.
Hmm.
And that's when my husband and I learned like there's only so many people we can really talk about this with because then we come off arrogant to them.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, when you start entertaining those friendships for too long, that's when I think the self-doubt also starts coming in within us, where we start to like, well, maybe we can do that again. Or maybe, so we kind of know like, I got to set some boundaries and I got to like kind of create like a little my own personal protective bubble where I'm like, I can only entertain those friendships or relationships for so long because they do start making me question myself and doubt myself and making me think that maybe I can have alcohol in my life again. Like maybe it doesn't have to be the way that it was before, but I don't know if I'm willing to test that. I don't know if I'm willing to throw down the drain everything that I've done and all the work that I've put into myself and my relationship and, things that I want to see grow. Like, I know that when I was drinking, I didn't have the time or energy to work on any of those. So I don't think I would ever want to go back to that. But
so many other entrepreneur or, big influencers and podcasters and, people that have made a name for themselves, they say, all of them say you're supposed to surround yourself with people who who lift you up. Or I know there's an exact saying, I can't think of it off the top of my head right now, but, we have to surround ourselves with people that we want to be like, right?
mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're going to hang out with the poor person underneath the bridge, you're going to morph into them. Or do you want to hang out with, like people that own investments and businesses, and do well in their life and help others? Or, I mean, you just have to like pick and choose which direction you want to go in life and who you want to surround yourself with. Because don't we morph into who we surround ourselves with?
Yeah. I like, it's funny. This is going to sound way off the wall, but I really kind of feel like it fits. So I don't know. My son we have an older son. He's 20, he's going to be 24. And when he was going through his teenage years, for some reason, I don't know why, he was like entertaining the fact of becoming a bum on the street. And he was just like, oh my gosh, I can totally do that. You don't have any responsibilities. And, he was like into trying psychedelics. And it was just this, I don't know why he went down this road. It was so weird. And he would glamorize the homeless lifestyle. I mean, he really would sit there and like, but look, mom, they just look so chill. They don't have any worries. And they're just, and, I mean, obviously he was a teenager. His immature mind didn't understand the struggle of, being homeless. He didn't truly grasp what that was. But I think we can do that in other areas, right? Well, like we can do that with, being at a bar. We can do that with, living paycheck to paycheck. Like we can do that with like being in like certain struggles and not ever thinking outside of the box because we're just like, oh, but those people are fine. They're fine. They go to the bar every Friday or, they go to happy hour every lunch hour. Like they're fine. Look they just always look so happy. They look so chill. Like, and we began to like romanticize and glamorize these lifestyles. And it's just like, I mean, someone that's on the outside of it, like my husband and I would tell my son, like, yeah, no, dude, that's not a way to live, and we were on the outside of it. So we were able to, let him know, like, hey, this isn't, please don't ever make that an option, and of course, thank goodness that's not, his story in any way. But I just feel like we do need people that can think higher than us, that can inspire us, that can, show us a different way. Because if all we see is the same thing over and over, then eventually that's what we'll become, without a doubt. And we need someone to pull us out, and we need someone to, inspire us, and we need someone, that we can aspire to be like. That's how we grow, and I'm getting to a point in my life where I understand like all these friendships that we had, at some point I think I will have to release them if there is no growth there. If I'm constantly being reminded of who I was versus who I am now, then there's just I can't see it moving forward. And but it is difficult. And also, what do you do with family? Like, what about family? What do we do with
Oh, this is
that?
a whole nother topic.
I know, but I'm saying, like, we can only escape so much. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. But at the end of the day, it is about us, and I think that's where I'm navigating right now between my own accountability, the choices that I make that I'm responsible for, but also the influences that I have outside of me, because they play a huge role in what my future is going to look like, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, in a nutshell, I feel like that's kind of where I'm at.
It is, it's so hard. I mean, the whole thing, but I think at the end of the day, we have to just do what's best for us, and those boundaries come into play. And I guess just reading so many books written by psychologists and stuff like that, or people like that, have just really changed my mindset around certain things. I don't have to be who you want me to be just to
Mhm.
please you, right? I'm going to be me, take it or leave it. And if you don't want to be a part of my life, then that's on you. Like if
Mhm.
you can't respect me and my choices, and I like, it is hard when people want to just keep you to who you were and not let you, of course, everyone that drank with me knows drunk Megan,
Mhm.
but those people that only knew drunk Megan, they don't know sober Megan anymore.
Mhm.
They don't know who I am. They just want to keep me as the girl I was. That's where I get stuck in this whole, sobriety, because how am I supposed to heal if you just want to keep me living in my past? And that's where that whole family dynamic comes in, is if you can't let go of who I was and write your own narrative about me, then there's no place for you.
Yeah.
And all those people, people that you used to drink with or associate with, well, Megan did this, Megan did that. It's like, okay, well, now I'm learning why I did that and did this.
Yeah.
Like there's this healing piece in year 2 and going forward after you get through year 1, that you're like, that's why I did that. That's why I
Mhm.
acted this way. And just so many things come, to surface. And so it is really hard navigating life. And even, probably your marriage has had some questions too, right? It's
Mhm.
just, it's all, you question everything.
Yeah.
Who were we? What were we doing? And who are we now? And it's, same with friendships and family. It's all wrapped up into this sober life. And
Yeah.
I think that's why people start questioning, am I going to stay sober? And to me, I'm never going to go back to the girl that everybody says I
Mhm.
was. And that's what keeps me sober. And along with many other things, but I mean, I never want to go back to who I was ever.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think one thing that has helped me stay where I'm at right now is I felt like alcohol took like so much from me, or I gave
Mm-hmm.
so much to alcohol willingly, that I'm in this journey of like taking my power back,
Yeah.
taking my identity back, because you're right, everyone is, the same way, like everyone's like, well, drunk Megan did this, like drunk Jessica did all kinds of things. And I realized, like you said, like there was a reason why I was doing what I was doing. There was a reason, because yes, alcohol influenced me, but also because, there was a reason I reached for alcohol.
Right.
So, I think just understanding that this isn't a journey of like being perfect or having to figure it out, but more of a journey of like taking my power back from everything that I felt like I lost control of. I lost control of myself. I lost control of my emotions, my feelings. Like there was so much that I lost in, the 29 plus years of drinking. And I feel like now I'm just like one day at a time taking, my power back, taking control back, taking back my identity, because yeah, you know, everyone slapped a label on me of like, drunk Jessica, like she's the one that you want to hang out with. And now
Yeah.
I'm working on, like removing that label from myself, because I still sometimes believe that, oh yeah, it was drunk Jessica that was funny and that was exciting, like, but no, there's so much more to me than just being drunk. There's so much more
Yeah.
than like, and even just there's so much more than just even being funny. I'm someone that has goals. I'm someone that wants to, see other things beyond just what I used to see every day. I don't want to take another vacation and just plan it around happy hour.
Right.
Like I'm
Let
so
me
over that. I'm
you
so over
can
that.
you can drink at home, but hey, I'm
Yes,
going to go on vacation and focus on drinking. It's the stupidest thing.
it's
I mean,
insane.
I can't wait to go spend 4 times the amount on a drink just because I'm in a different state or a different
Yeah,
country. That
no,
sounds real cool.
it's
I mean,
surreal.
we all did it, especially,
Yeah,
yeah. So my first vacation was amazing because my first focus was not alcohol. It was like, what can we do today?
yeah. Yeah, that's what I was listening to this podcast, and they were talking about, their first, it was this girl talking about her and her husband going on vacation, and they took all the money that they would spend on drinking, and they rented these, I forgot what they're called, like the bikes, like dirt bikes. And
Oh,
they like went around and they rode everywhere and they did all these activities. She's like, and we had money left over. She's like, that's how much we used to drink. They
yeah,
were
it's
able to do a
insane.
whole day of activities, you know, versus drinking. And they build memories. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly what I want to do. Like, you go to a bar, I mean, you can go to a bar here in LA or versus go to a bar somewhere in Europe. Guarantee it's going to look very similar. Like,
Yeah.
you're going to find the same type of alcohol, the same kind of people. I mean, a bar is a bar, there's no difference. And you miss out. You miss out because you're just so stuck in your comfort zone. You're so stuck in the cycle of like, this is what we do, and no one's going to tell me any different. And it's unfortunate, and it is difficult for people to see that you actually want something different. Like, it's hard for them to believe, but I'm understanding that that's not my problem. That's not my problem. If you think that's who I am, well, hey, you can think whatever you want to think, but I'm trying to build something different. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think working on taking my power back is what's helping me stay focused and reminding me of why I even started this in the first place. Because if I'm being honest, I mean, it was for health reasons, and also because I knew something was off. I just didn't feel right. And, I started having just issues with my marriage. And I just knew, like, okay, this is going to lead somewhere really, really bad. I
Hmm.
knew that eventually it was going to get worse. But I wasn't planning to stop forever. This was just like a little test, but little did I know it was actually going to be a lot harder for me to give into drinking again. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it would take for me to actually give into it. Even though I do have moments where I entertain it, when I really think about it, I freak out. I really
Hmm.
do. So I think that's how I know that I don't think I could do that again. I don't know. It terrifies me to think that I could allow something back into my life that I know that took so much from me. Like, that really, really scares me. And I'm not a person that believes that you should lean into fear, but there's some fears that are actually, they're pretty good. Like, they have valid reasons why, there's certain things we should be fearful of. And I think facing those fears is what empowers us.
Exactly. I think so. If you were to quit, smoking or another drug, would you be thinking the same thing right now? Like
It's
doubting
funny. I used to be a smoker. I smoked for like 10 years, and I quit. I mean, I was from one day to the next. I was just like, okay, I'm done. Until this day, I can't. There's just no way. I
Yeah.
hate the smell of it. There's just no way. Because, like, I mean, I know how bad it is, right? Like, you just know how
But
bad it is.
But like, isn't that crazy that we know how bad it is, and then we're sitting here, or then that is how I thought all the time. I'm like, I will never smoke a cigarette. They're so bad for me.
Hmm.
And then here I am consuming alcohol.
Hmm.
That like, what do we call that? An oxymoron? I don't know.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
It's
There's okay, so my husband and I really we're really big into like fitness, and we've just recently gotten into, other things, other like health things that we've been looking into. And I started seeing a hormone specialist, and they were talking about hormone replacement. And I have a friend, she was just like, I can't believe you're taking these things. And she was like, why would you do that? Like, you don't understand. And she's telling me this as she's like holding a drink, right? And I'm like,
oh, that's the best.
what do you say to that? And I'm just like, well, hormones are something that our body produces and creates. So I'm just replacing what I'm missing. What does alcohol do? Like, tell me what part of alcohol is like natural and that your body can actually like utilize. They can't answer that, but they will justify tooth and nail why they drink. Like, and it's true. I mean, I did it. I did
Well,
it.
yeah.
I justified it. I had moments where, I had a couple of friends that actually quit before me, and, and I was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're doing that." And I justified why I still drank, So no judgment to these people, but once you realize what it is, you're just like, I don't know if I can do that. Like, it's just it would take a lot. It would take a lot, But
And
I mean, we're still human. Those fears come
yeah,
up, those questions come up.
I feel the people that haven't gotten to our point in sobriety won't understand, some of the things that we're talking about. But it's so true. Like, we justified our drinking for so long, and now we look at people that justify, let's not use this because it has toxins in it, and don't use that because it has this toxin in it, and I'm gonna go toxin free.
Hmm.
But don't worry, I have a whole cabinet full of alcohol.
Hmm.
Come
Yeah.
over for drinks.
All of a sudden, that's just like, I don't know. It's just off limits, right? Like alcohol, for some reason, it has no effect on you if you're consuming it. But everything else, God forbid you drink something sugar free because, sugar alcohol.
Right? I mean, I found myself looking at the protein this morning, and I was like, oh, sucralose? Oh man, why? I didn't even, but I wouldn't have paid attention to that stuff. I wasn't that person to drink the organic, buy the organic, go non-toxic while I was drinking. But now I kind of pay more attention to that. But now I pay attention to the people that go non-toxic but
Hmm.
still smoke and drink.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, this
Yeah.
doesn't really make sense, but whatever makes you feel good. And I guess, balance, right?
Yeah. And really quick, what you said about, now you pay attention to the things that you're consuming and you're putting in your body. Like, it's so true. And there's something that comes along with that as well, that when you're drinking, obviously you don't care what you're putting in your body. You don't
Mm-mm.
care. My husband and I, we used to not only drink a lot, we used to eat a lot. We were
Yeah.
overweight, and it was just all bad. So I realized that there was a part of us that was abusing and hurting our bodies, and we really had no self-love for ourselves. Like, it was just this very toxic relationship we had with ourselves,
Yeah.
and I think that once you open your eyes to what you're putting into your body, and you start to take care of yourself, and you start to, see yourself under a different light, it opens up your eyes to so many other things, where that you were allowing in your life, that you were allowing to not only like consume, but to overlook, to just make excuses for. And that's something that very early on into the year of our sobriety, I want to say it was like around 3 or 4 months, where we really started to hone in on our health. I think that's when I started questioning a lot of my friendships, because I started to see I mean, at first it was judgy. I'll be honest. I kind of judged. I'm like, "Ugh, they're still doing that. Oh, they're still like, they're not trying to diet. Like, they're not, and it was just, it was very judgmental. I'll be honest. But I think what it was too is that I was starting to realize that the things that they were doing and the things that I also allowed when, I was in like a friendship with them or in a relationship with them, like that I would make excuses for, and I would just say, well, like, oh, that's just them because they're drunk. Oh, that's just them because, that's
Yes.
just how they are when they're drinking. And,
Hmm.
and there was boundaries that were crossed, within like my relationship. There was things that were just not okay that if I saw that happening now, no way. Like, there's just no way. But that just goes to show that when you're consuming something that obviously we know is not good for us, there's a level of like self respect that you don't have for yourself, because it's like you're not honoring your body, you're not honoring yourself, you're not, I mean, I know that might sound a little extreme to some people, but I think that's something that I realize that if I'm willing to consume something like that, that is so toxic for me, and I'm willing to hurt myself in that way, like, how are people going to treat me? Because I don't even have boundaries with myself. I'm
Right.
allowing all of these things to cross boundaries. And alcohol is one of those things that makes crossing boundaries very easy, very
Yeah.
easy. And, I mean, I hope that made sense what I said, because I do feel like there is something about when you remove something so toxic from your life and you realize like, no, I do care about what comes into my body, that you begin to see on the outside what also is trying to cross your boundaries. You realize people how they can, try to cross boundaries with you or be disrespectful towards you. It just opens your eyes to a whole other things around you when you are honest about what you're consuming. But there is a level of denial that people have when it comes to alcohol. They'll just, I mean, they'll fight you. They'll just, I've had people tell me, like,
I
yeah,
don't have a problem.
yeah, I don't have a problem. Or, I'll quit this or I'll quit that, but I'll never quit alcohol. And it's like, okay, okay. I mean, if you really think that that's something that is going to benefit you at one point, then I mean, we'll see.
Or I love the people that are in such denial. Well, I can just have 3 to 4 drinks and I'm fine. 3 to 4 drinks every single night. And
Right.
what does your drink look like? Is it that much like liquor or is it beer? Is it wine? I mean, it's all the same, right? But what is 3 to 4 drinks a
Mm-hmm.
night? How is that managing your alcohol? I mean, to me that seems like an awful lot of alcohol, and I've been there, done that.
Yeah.
So I only have, 3 glasses of wine a night. However, that's not the 5 ounce serving, that's the whole bottle.
So true. And again, like denial, right? It's so
Yeah.
funny. I was just having this conversation with my husband a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about one of the last times that we went out with some friends. And I remember that night we were driving, or actually it was the next day, we were driving back home, and we were talking to ourselves and we were like, oh yeah, we actually did really good. We didn't even drink that much. And I remember thinking back to the night, and that day, both my husband and I played out that whole day. So in the morning, we got ready. We had, because we would always have to, pregame, right? We'd always have to have a
Yeah.
drink as we're getting ready. And then we went to a bar before we went to a party, which because we were going to meet some friends. We went to a bar. We had 2 drinks there. Then we got to the party and then we had 2 shots. And then we had 2 drinks before we went to the bar that we were all going to go. And I remember thinking the whole time, like, oh, we weren't that drunk. So everything, we were fine. We get to the bar, and as we're leaving, because we were the only ones that used to drink seltzers. That's all we would drink, right? Because we were trying to be healthy, so we would drink seltzers.
I love that one. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember looking at the table, and there had to be about 20 cans on the table. And I was telling my husband, like, can you believe that we thought we didn't drink that much? That night we didn't drink as much as we usually do. So what did a night of drinking heavy look like? Like, it was just so crazy that we would even think that wasn't a lot, you know?
Yeah.
And again, it's like people would think like, oh yeah, you guys are heavy drinkers, like you guys drink a lot. And unless we were blackout drunk, to us, we didn't drink a lot, you know?
Yeah.
It,
Or I love when, well, I drink a bottle, but I mean, I strung it out over 5 hours.
okay.
I mean, I was in such denial. Well, I mean, I didn't finish it in 2 hours. It took me like 5 hours.
Right? It was a day process.
Oh my gosh. It's really pathetic when you look back and realize how much denial you were in for your
Mhm.
drinking and justifying your drinking. Oh, well, I mean, it was lunchtime with the girls, so of course I had a beer.
Yeah.
Of course I had a margarita. Well, I mean, we went to dinner and it was happy hour, so I had to drink as many margaritas in one sitting as I possibly could. But I mean, whatever. It just doesn't happen every
Mhm.
day. It happens every day.
It's so true. I mean, it's so
Uh,
true, the things that we'll tell ourselves. And, the moments that I have, my moments of weakness, I guess you can say, where I start to think again that I could possibly have a drink. And, I can be one of those people, those normal drinkers, right? Um,
Normie.
yeah, a normie. I think about those moments where I was like, what caused me to be in such denial? Like, what was it? And how do you know that when you're in denial? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how do you go back and try to tell yourself that this time is going to be different when you were in such a denial back then? So those moments that you have those eye-opening moments where it's like, holy crap, there was 20 cans on the table and nobody else was drinking seltzers but me and my husband. Those are the moments you're like, yeah, and you thought you didn't drink that much. And you thought
Mm.
you guys were actually really chill that night and you know, you didn't have an issue, right? So what makes you think you're never going to hit that moment of denial again, because you didn't know it back then. So how are you going to know it now? I mean, granted, we have obviously, a little time of sobriety under our belt. And I think, we'll, you, the red flags are get harder to ignore the longer that you are in sobriety. I
Mm.
think there's something that happens that you're just kind of like, yeah, this doesn't feel right, However, I think as human beings, we have a way of like making ourselves believe something that we really, really want to do, that it's okay, justifying it,
Yeah.
and I realize that, that's something that I still have to hold myself accountable to. Justifying moments like that, justifying 20, seltzer cans on the table. How do I justify that? How do I say that wasn't a lot, I mean, we have a picture of it. We have a picture of my husband and I on the table, and all the cans are behind us. So I'm like, there's proof, cans.
We would go through a 12 pack of the seltzers easily in a
Mhm.
day. And
Yeah.
that's him drinking the seltzers and me drinking that. I mean, a couple seltzers and then drinking hard alcohol, but he drank the seltzers. Or I would drink the beer because his stomach couldn't handle. This is how stupid this is. He couldn't drink beer because it hurt his stomach because of his UC. So he would drink the hard seltzers. Okay,
That was me.
this liquor I can't drink, so I'm going to drink this one because it's, quote, better for me. It's all the freaking same. I mean, me taking shots of vodka and whiskey are, no no worse or better
Right.
than, somebody drinking bottles of wine.
Hmm.
It,
That was me too. I definitely try to find ways to drink where it didn't affect me as much as like I also couldn't drink beer. My husband used to work at a brewery and he would always like come over, obviously I'd get free beer and I would like force myself, which is so insane. I would force myself to have a couple of beers. And these were like heavy, high alcohol content beers.
because
And
it's free.
yeah, because it's free. How, oh my gosh. I think back on it and I'm like, why? Like, why put yourself, I already knew drinking two beers was going to set me back a couple of days, because I was trying to, work out. I was on a, program. Like, I already knew it was going to set me back, but it was free. How was I going to say no? Like, again, the denial, justifying all those things, you know, it was me. It was me. I
Mhm.
allowed myself to, to fall into this trap, into this lie. And I have to hold myself accountable to that is still a possibility. So are you willing to entertain that, And yeah, and again, I take it back to what I said with like friendships, also entertaining people that are constantly reminding you of who you were and, the good times they had. Like, they they start to romanticize that part of you, and then you begin to entertain it. So it's like we do have to be very careful the people that we surround ourselves with,
Yeah.
because it's still a thing, and it's hard. I mean, I think something that I went through probably maybe around like 9 months of sobriety was, beginning to like mourn my old relationships and beginning to mourn myself, the person that I used to be. But I still have moments that kind of comes back, but I'm looking forward to the second part of, this, like you said, the year two. And I know it's probably going to be very difficult with the healing process, but I think there's a big identity shift that happens during a healing process, that it could be like the game changer for many people, because it is, once you start to look at yourself and dig in within yourself, like, I think that's where true change begins to take place, because there's
Yeah.
parts of yourself you can't deny. And I think that's where I'm at right now, where there's things I can't deny that I allowed and I entertained. And, alcohol tries to kind of come in sometimes and, creep in. And I hate to say that, because I don't want to give alcohol an identity like that, because I think that's like a big thing, giving alcohol such an identity. But, whatever you got to do, if you got to put a face on it, then that's what you do. But
It's like that toxic friend that wants to sneak back in and take over your life.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, and it'll creep in when you don't even expect it. I mean, there's times, like I said, I felt the last interview I did with you, like, I felt really confident, and then it just all of a sudden this just anxiety creeped in, and I was like, oh my gosh, where did this come from? Because I think it's our own fears of actually believing that you could be with, like, you could go on without this. It's a big fear, because 29 years of having alcohol in my life, like, it was like my security blanket. Like, it was like I was like a toddler with my blanket. And anytime I went somewhere, I was like, I
Yeah.
had my blankie with me, and offered me comfort, offered me warmth, like whatever it was I thought it offered me. you know I clinged onto that blanket for a long, long time. So I kind of feel like a toddler right now. Like, I'm releasing that that blanket, and I'm, you know, reaching for something that I know can serve me,
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm not trying to be a 40-plus-year-old woman still with the, security blanket that is.
You gotta get rid of that binky and that
I got it.
blankie.
Yeah, you got to toss that. Like, it's not attractive. It's really not.
I love that you say it that way because it's so true. And we break our toddlers from their binky, their bottle, and their blankie. It's probably terrifying for them now that I think about it because that was their security. And here the alcohol was our security all along. And we had to break free from that. And now looking
Mhm.
back at all those terrible, upset tantrums that were thrown. I mean, we're grown adults throwing tantrums about quitting drinking.
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. Like, we really do. We have fits, and I still have moments where, like I said, like, I get really mad, and I try to like blame people, or blame situations of like, well, this is why my drinking was so bad, or or this is why I needed alcohol. And it's like, okay, put that blanket down. Let's process
Yeah.
what you're really feeling. Let's process what's really going on, because that's something we didn't do when we drank. I mean, I'll speak for myself. Like, but I feel like a lot
Yeah.
of people that drink, that's the last thing we did, right? We didn't process anything.
And
We didn't want to do that. We just wanted to keep drinking. Let's
yeah.
pretend it's
Well,
not
and
happening.
oh my gosh, it's like we just kid ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So as we wrap up, I think, you going into year 2 and the healing part of sobriety, to me, that's how I look at it. That's how it begins. And I will be a broken record on the books that I've read that really opened my eyes to why we drink
Hmm.
or drink. Like The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, and he also wrote Traumatic Stress, which I just started, and I can't recommend that book enough. And then It's Not You, and then You're the One That You've Been Waiting For by Richard Schwartz. I just did a video that will be released. Well, I just did a video yesterday. I recorded it. It should be released on the 16th, and this will go out next week. But I just did a video on that because these 4 books have been so powerful in my journey and my healing. And, for those of us that are doubting ourselves or questioning a sobriety for me, or I can't get through this, I think when you actually pick up the right book, the healing really starts to speak for itself.
That's cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I wrote down, what is it? It's a traumatic stress, right?
Traumatic stress is
Yeah.
mind blowing. I mean, they're all mind blowing, but I just started it and I'm on chapter 7 and I'm like, holy smokes.
Yeah. Yeah. Because so many of us, I mean, if you think about it, the ages that we started drinking, I started drinking at the age of 14. I experienced a lot of trauma before that and after that.
Yeah.
So think of everything that we've gone through that we've yet to process, right?
Yep.
Because alcohol really, it numbs our senses in so many ways, but it also, like, it causes us to just, like, forget, right? Like, just put it in the back burner. We don't need to think about this. We don't need to process, like. And when we stop drinking, it's like all of that. I mean, thank goodness that it doesn't come up all at once, right? But when it does start
Yeah.
coming, it's like we got to process it, because if we don't, we can easily go back to escaping. And even if it's not alcohol, it could be something else. I mean, the
Yeah.
first month that I stopped drinking, I started gaining a lot of weight because I just started eating candy. Like, that's all I wanted was just candy. And I hear that a lot with,
Same.
like people that quit drinking, especially if you were like a wine drinker. I know that's a big thing. Sugar is like a big trigger. So yeah, I mean, we can easily replace our addiction with something else.
Yeah.
And it's like processing our feelings, our emotions, our trauma. Like, it's super important, and we can't skip that step. I mean, I feel like we can't, or we shouldn't. For sure, it's part of the journey. 100%.
Yeah. So now when I coach people, and just people in my everyday life, I am like, well, we got to get to the root of this. And now I read people differently. I've through these books, it's crazy because I'm like, this is why you drink. This is why you act this way. This is why this, and this is why that. And, because it's education, right? And you're learning about yourself, but then you learn about yourself through sobriety. Then you start learning about other people. Just, it's almost subconsciously like, okay,
Yeah, yeah,
it's
I
crazy.
I agree, and it's true, because I mean, even if you go out and hang out with friends or with family, and if especially you've been sober for a while now, you start to see, like, certain things that they say, or certain behaviors, certain patterns that they have, and you're just like, oh yeah, you got some trauma in you. You got
Exactly. It's
some unsolved issues there, dude. Like,
you should probably go talk to someone
yeah,
or start journaling or something. I don't know.
yeah,
But you can't force anybody, right? And
no.
that's the thing. I mean, you're on this journey. Now you get to hit the healing part. Yes, you question forever, but I think a lot of people question their forever, right? And I
Mhm.
think a lot of people, they can comment and they can all agree that they still question forever because it does feel way too big.
Yeah.
And I can't say I'm never going to drink again. I hear that on a daily on a daily basis. But for some of us, I think you repeating your thoughts out loud probably reassures you that you really don't want to go back down that road again. And I think that that's why we play that tape forward constantly and remind ourselves why we are sober and we're thriving in life. Yeah, maybe it's not all pretty every single day, every single week, every single month, but it's much better to get through it sober than masking it and then still just never dealing with it. It just keeps compounding. But now you can get through it sober, have more awareness, and life is just, it's different. So playing that tape forward, like you just did this whole entire video, has to reassure you that there's probably more of a forever in you than there isn't.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing that I'm realizing also is that those moments of fear and doubt, they're exactly that. It's just a moment. It's just a moment. I mean, I texted you, a week before we did this, right? And I was like,
Saturday,
I do this. I don't know. Like I'm panicking. And literally by the time I got home, because I was on a walk, by the time I got home, I was like, yeah, I mean, I have these moments of fear and doubt, but that's all it was. And I'm reminded again, I mean, talking to you or talking to my husband, I'm just like, oh yeah, there's no way I can give this up. Like, and I mean, I don't know, call it kudo points or, call it superficial, like, but I want to keep stacking up those months. Like, I don't know about you, but it feels pretty good. Like, there was something about, because of my journey, it didn't start with 75 hard, but it was one of the first things that I did that made me realize that I could do this. I loved watching that countdown. Like it was super cool. And to see those days and those numbers like stack up, it was amazing. It was empowering. And I have found out I really like that. I like having that time under my belt.
Yeah.
However, it does come with its fears and its doubts and I think like you said, there is something about not having it figured out and not having to say like, oh, I'll never drink again, like, but just being honest and just like, I don't know if I'll ever drink again or not, but I know that right now I love my life the way it is and I'm going to do everything in my power to hold on to this. I don't know what tomorrow or a year or two is going to look like, but I know right now that this is something I don't want to let go of. And that's all I can do, just keep reminding myself why I started, why I did this. But having a place to be honest is also very important. And, I'm really glad, like, I don't, like, it's not like I text you all the time, but it was just for that day, I just felt like, I need to be honest with her about where I'm at because this is scary. And I wouldn't ever want to say something that will make someone slip up, like I'm not here to encourage anyone to like, yeah, sure, you should just try and see if you can drink again. Like, no, we've all fought to get to where we are right now.
Yeah.
Like, that's the last thing I would, encourage someone to do. But these are fears that do come up, and these are questions that do come up. And I think having a place to say those are, it's super important, and it's necessary. It is necessary to have that safe place.
Yeah. I mean, and you just reminded us that sobriety isn't black and white. It's full of gray, full of grace, full of growth. And you don't have to promise forever. You just have to get through today. You have to just choose today, this time.
Exactly. 100. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me back.
Thank you. And I hope, for those that are listening and questioning, that are, doubting and struggling also, it's fine to be honest in our recovery.
Yes.
And we just have to keep giving ourselves grace and keep moving forward.
100. Exactly.
Yeah. So thanks for being brave. I know when you texted me on Saturday, I was sitting by the fire and I was like, and then here we are.
Yeah. Thank you for responding back. Cause I was in it for sure. I needed that, just that reassurance, but also just to know like, it's okay to be where I'm at. It's totally okay.
It totally is. I think speaking it out loud is, I'm going to say, the best thing we can do. When you're doubting yourself, And when you have something on your mind, getting it out, if that's through a post on paper, to a friend, on a video, get it out. You cannot hold it in. You have to get it out. So I think when you texted me, it kind of probably released something in you and lifted something and just helped you move through. You chose today again.
Yeah, for sure. It helped me get past that moment and get me here today. So I made it.
I'm so proud of you. I can't wait to see what the next 13 months
Yeah.
are and like your healing journey and what you learn.
We'll do a follow-up for sure.